people signed up to speak for that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Need a motion to close session.
Is it, yeah. Do I hear a motion that we come out of closed session? Second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
At this time, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Could we please stand for our pledge and our prayer? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your protection and your guidance in helping us to make the right decisions for our great town of Nashville. Amen. And Sarah, you said there's no public comments. We have a special recognition tonight from Ms. Patsy McGee, and it's a resolution for her services. Ms. Patsy, there you are. Could you come? Well, it's not safe, but anyway, here's your.
Well, you can go down front if you want
Yeah.
to, Mayor.
Up there?
Yeah,
Can you just come back here with us?
that's right. Make it work.
Yeah, that's fine right there, Patsy. It says, whereas the town of Nashville is always appreciative of those who choose to serve for the betterment of the town, and whereas Patsy McGee served the town of Nashville as a planning board member from 2004 to 2020, and whereas Patsy McGee served dutifully as vice chair from 2005 to 2006 and chair from 2006 until October of 2020. And whereas it is fitting that the town of Nashville shows its appreciation when one has rendered such service to the planning board. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and town council of the town of Nashville that Patsy McGee is hereby acknowledged as having been a good, loyal, and faithful public servant of the planning board, and that on behalf of the citizens of the town of Nashville, we express deep appreciation for the valuable service which she has provided to the town. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Patsy McGee, and a copy of the same shall be placed within the permanent records of the town of Nashville. And Patsy, we thank you so kindly for your service.
Thank you.
You served us well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is on our agenda is the considered amendment to inducement agreement for land exchange between Prime One Building LLC and the town as advertised. Do you want to do that, Randy? Would you like for me to read this? Okay, it says, back in November of 2019, the council approved exchanging some of the town's land on the north side of Commerce Street in the West Nashville Commerce Park on Cook Road with land that Lee Balance Prime One Villas LLC owns on the south side of the Commerce Street. Lee's land is wet, marshy, and has a waterway that needs to be relocated before any building can be erected. Moving the waterway and adding fill to the land will require NCDEQ permitting and would seriously delay building shell buildings in the park. Over the last several months, Mr. Balance has been working with his engineer on a site plan for shell building number 2 on the north side of the Commerce Street, as agreed to back in November. However, the site survey for shell building 2 has revealed that a good portion of the land slated for shell building number 3 is also wet and marshy. To facilitate his obligation under the inducement agreement, Mr. Balance is proposing the exchange of his 3.13 acres land on the south side of Commerce Street with a 1.45 acre parcel of the town's property on the north side of Commerce Street and a 1.68 acre parcel on the town's property that abuts 800 Cook Road. And town manager, would you like to finish that and what your thinking is?
Well, I believe this exchange is in the best interest of the town. The town purchased and to develop this property back in 2015 as a way to facilitate and spur economic and industrial growth within Nashville. And Mr. Balance, to date, is really the only builder that's approached the town about doing any building in the park itself. So North Carolina state statute requires that in order for a council to enter into an inducement agreement for an economic development or exchange land, that we hold a public hearing on it, and that's the purpose of tonight's meeting. And we do have with us this evening Kevin Barnell with Stocks Engineering, who has been working with Mr. Balance, and he could attest to the condition of some of that land that we had originally, I shouldn't say originally, that back in November we had agreed to exchange. Unbeknownst to any of us at that time, some of that land was even marginal for development. So, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind.
Good evening, guys. I'm Kevin Barnell with Stocks Engineering, and tonight here representing the rebalance and farms on building. We, over the past several months, we've been able to mow the property or have the town mow the property. We did the surveys, and we have completed the design on shell number 2. And those permits have been submitted to the state for permitting. And just in that process, while we had established the western boundary line for the shell number 2, it delineated at that point to show where lot number 3 would be or future shell number 3. And when we're looking at the piece of property, it's really pushing us really close to the pond that's out there now and some of the wetter areas. So when we look at it, it would be a lot easier to go ahead and develop what really is the size. If you're looking at it from Cook Road to the right of the first shell building we built, it kind of fits in between that existing shell building and the house that's there. And we feel like that would be the better approach to a shell number 3 building. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Any questions, council?
And Mayor, it's just a public hearing tonight.
Right.
On this. There's no decision of the council. That'll be made December 1st
Right.
on the actual amendment to the inducement agreement with Mr. Balance.
Thank you.
Is there anyone that would like to speak against or for this proposal? If not, we'll move on to our next item. Summary of the issue. Michael Hertz requests to rezone approximately 5.100 acre from a 947 acre tract of land located at 609 Weston Avenue from R10 medium density residential to MF multifamily residential. This parcel is identified by Nash County Tax Parcel Number 380006299776. Mr. Hart's first rezoning request, Z 2020-03, was denied by the Planning Board on August 26, 2020. On August 28, 2020, Mr. Hurt withdrew his rezoning and special use request prior to the September 1st, 2020 Town Council regular meeting, opting instead to meet with the neighboring property owners on September the 16th, 2020, and find out what and how they would like to see the property developed. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Hurt submitted a letter of request to the Planning Board requesting the right to waive the 6-month requirement from the date of the filing of the last petition due to unusual circumstances and unnecessary hardship. He indicated in his letter that after meeting with the neighboring property owners, he wanted to seek partial rezoning of the 9 acres to MF. He stated that he purchased the property to develop it into an income-producing property. Without the rezoning and subsequent development, he is not generating income from the property. At the September 30th, 2020 Planning Board meeting, the Planning Board approved Mr. Hurt's request to waive the 6-month time limit to reconsider the rezoning request. Mr. Hurt is now proposing to rezone 5.100 acre of the petition property to MF in the rear of the 9.47 acre tract, leaving the remaining 4.46 acres as R10. The reason for the rezoning request is to allow construction of a multifamily building. The petition property is in a very zoning diverse area surrounded by MF multifamily, R10 medium density residential, R6 high density residential, B1 business, I industrial, and AI agriculture zoning districts. The future land use map designates the petition property as low residential growth, with the surrounding areas being classified as high density, medium density, agricultural, industrial, and commercial growth. The town is in the process of developing a new comprehensive plan and update future land use map. The new future land use map will examine and classify undeveloped lands to highest and best use based upon the community's needs, the public infrastructure serving a property and a property surrounding land uses. With the petition property's frontage to a state highway, location within a diverse mixed-use neighborhood, immediate access to a large diameter water and sewer main, high voltage electric line, 4th natural gas line, and direct storm sewer discharge to Stony Creek. The update future land use map will no doubt reclassify the petition property to multifamily, office and institutional, or highway commercial. This is a public hearing tonight for information only. Are there people here that would like to speak? If so, you will come to the front, give your name, your address, and the town clerk will time, and you will have 3 minutes. Yes.
Mayor, should we have the petitioner address?
Yeah, I was going to let him go before they start. Okay, Mr. Hurt?
Good evening. Is
Good
there any
evening.
way I can bring that podium over here for a second? You mind?
You guys will be fine.
I got all the big rooms on there. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Appreciate y'all seeing me again. My name is Michael J. Hurt, with Hurt LLC. I feel kind of like James Brown, you know, I'm back, but I'm super bad. So, we're here today because we are requesting a partial rezoning of the 608 Western Avenue from R10 medium density to multifamily, leaving the road frontage and the majority of the developmental land R10 medium density. I'm gonna try to do this in 3 minutes. I don't know if I've got 3 minutes, but,
after our original application for rezoning special use permit was met with concerns from the public, we withdrew our application, scheduled public workshops, and met with the citizens in the community. After hearing their concerns, we've come up with a strategy to move forward that has taken those concerns into consideration, and we hope to have everybody's support. We've given you some handouts to review, and I'm just gonna turn to page 1. I've put one in everybody. I'll be happy to give this to the public after it's over with. One of the first concerns was talking about the rezoning only. That's what we've done. You know, having a rezoning and special use hearing on the same night, there was a lot of concerns, there was a lot of pushback on that, so we came back and we're only requesting the rezoning only of this property. We are not requesting a special use permit. We're not seeking the ability to develop anything yet. This is simply a rezoning hearing. And so, should we be able to get this approved, there will be a process, a special use permit that will have to go through council to get their approval. And I think it's important to just remember that. On page 2, and so that's what page 1 pretty much represents. On page 2, requesting of the rezoning is the furthest point from the road that can be reasonably developed. That was another concern regarding the public. Yes, and that was a concern from the public, having these apartment buildings at the road frontage. I think somebody called it a monstrosity at one point. I respectfully disagree with that, but having said that and taking that into consideration, that's why we are seeking to rezone the back portion of this property. 5 acres seems to be a little excess, or it seems to be above and beyond what's necessary, but you really only have about 1/3 of the property that can actually be developed because of a blue line stream setback, 100-year floodplain, 500-year floodplain. So I think it's important to point that out. And page 3, if you turn over, it shows the natural tree buffers that are there, which this is page 3. So it shows the natural tree buffers that we're looking to try to leave. Now, again, we're just looking for rezoning, but could be a good possibility that this is what the makeup would look like. In such instance, we would leave as many natural trees, fully mature trees, to help conceal the aesthetics of the apartment complex. Should we be able to do something of this nature? Those trees are older than anybody in this room, several of them are. And you know, if you really study around, there's a lot of buffering that would conceal this almost in its entirety. All 4 sides would have some form of natural tree buffer, which is important from the road. That was a concern from the public driving past and seeing these buildings. On page 4, we talk about a unit count and being in harmony with the community. One of the concerns from our initial submittal was the 144 units not being in harmony with the community. So pulling this back, dropping it to 48 units, I think we make a very good case that that is a lot more in harmony with the community than a 144 unit complex. We've got 40 apartments at one end of Western Avenue. We've got 18 apartment units at the other end of Western Avenue. And there are still over 13 individually zoned MF properties within 500 feet of this location, which consist of over 27 duplex and triplex units. So we're still in harmony, given if this is what we wind up building, which 48 units would be the maximum per the town of Nashville's ordinances and density requirements. This would be the maximum development that we could do on this property. So I think, again, that's taking the people's consideration and applying it to what we're trying to do here. Another concern that we heard about was the big bulky building that didn't meet the residential harmony, right? So on page 5, we've got a new rendering that we've come up with. And this gives more of a residential feel. And when I get into a little bit of the dimensions regarding this building, we're calling this the chateau, but it gives the impression of a 2-story building with high roof pitches. Okay? This would be a design concept should we get something approved and should we move forward with it. This is something that we would strongly consider using. Aesthetically, it's a lot more appealing than the boxier other version, and that's on page 5, Mayor, right there in front of your packet. I don't know if you
Okay,
got
good.
one.
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and so we've got copper awnings, we've got Juliet balconies, we've got a lot of different aesthetics that make it a lot more appealing. And when you turn to page 6, it's going to be hard to look in the fine print, but the eave height of this building is 24 foot 3 inches. There are multiple houses in this community that are 2-story that have high hip roofs, high pitched, 12 on 12 or 6 on 12 pitches. And basically, the perception is of this, that this is a 2-story building, but in actuality, it's a 3-story. And basically what you're doing is every unit has its own aesthetics. It's got its own appeal. The top floors would, in a sense, have vaulted ceilings in the unit, and it would basically be hidden in the ceiling. This is a concept that you're starting to see a lot in residential communities throughout different municipalities. This is actually, I took this from the town of Butler. This is what they want to develop in the middle of their residential community, because it has that vibrant feel, that residential feel, and so you can kind of hide it, so to speak. But so again, this is a new render, and this is something that we would strongly consider if we were able to get the multifamily rezoning done and then pursue special use permit. A big point is number 7, and this is an email by Bob Lieberman. He is the NCDOT representative for Nash County and Wilson County. Mr. Bob Lieberman, he states in the email that was sent to me that if there were 2 24-unit apartment buildings, meaning 48 units, that it would not require any road widening, it would not require a turning lane, it would not require an acceleration lane, and it would not require a deceleration lane. And one of the biggest complaints that we heard here was about public safety and about people entering into the road and having taken up personal property right away. That was something that we heard about. That was something that was advocated for big time. And I can assure you that DOT, if they have an opportunity to get some road work done, they're going to take advantage of it. And so if they don't feel like the number of units, 48, is going to constitute any road improvements, they don't feel like that's going to constitute any public safety issues either, because if it was a public safety issue, they would require that turning lane. And so I think that is a big point coming from NCDOT. On page number 8, we've got an appraisal from Lenny Breedlove. He is an appraiser here in Rocky Mount. He's a Nash County Planning Board member as well. He determined that the value of that property rezoned to MF would have a value between $25,000 and $35,000 per acre. If we were able to get units approved to go on that location, it would have a value between $6,000 and $10,000 per unit. And it would enhance, his opinion, it would enhance the community overall. And he's got pictures to support the claim. If you turn to the next page, you're going to see a picture of an industrial warehouse across the street. The roof has been caved in for years. I couldn't tell you how long it's been gone, but it's been gone for some time now. I think it's a cotton mill, somebody told me. And obviously, a lot of people in this room understand the condition of the property that we purchased. There was people living there for 10 years without power. But there's a couple of different pictures. He's got some pictures of some duplexes and quads that's in there that show it to be somewhat distressed. And so his opinion, I'm not speaking for him, his opinion was that it would have an impact on the property values in the community with something that looks like this, what we had initially proposed. Okay? So the full build out. This is kind of jumping a little bit back. I'm answering questions that we had a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, and I want to be as transparent and open as I can possibly be. So that's one thing as well. On page 9, I put some literature in there from the North Carolina Department of Government. And what that states, it's a study that they did in 2017, and it talks about low-income communities and the impact it has on property values per square foot. And what their findings read is that there was no significant increase or decrease in property values per square foot with a low-income community beside it. Now, why did I put that in there? There's nothing against low-income communities. A lot of people need help. I'm not against that. My point is that this was a market rate community that we were proposing, and it would be a market rate community that we would propose moving forward. And so therefore, we're talking apples and oranges. A lot of times, low-income communities get mixed up with multifamily, and I really don't understand that stigma. But the perception, but that refutes, the North Carolina School of Government, that refutes the claim that even a low-income community could have a negative impact on property values per square foot. And, you know, I'm a Duke fan, so, you know, don't shoot the messenger, but anyhow. One of my last points that I want to bring up, and I think it's very, very, very important that we bring this up. There was a lot of concern about safety and security. There was a lot of concern about the public's well-being and their quality of life. And the town of Nashville's police chief and the town of Nashville's fire chief, it kind of got blown over when they said this. But doing their third-party independent studies, our original community's build-out, they said that that community would have been one of the safest and one of the most secured communities in the entire town of Nashville. And that is that's important when we talk about Miss Smith's quality of life, when we talk about our other neighbors' quality of life and the 911 calls and the EMS calls that get done. When the highest officials in each department state that these would be one of the safest communities and one of the most secured, I think that speaks volumes. And I think it should be duly noted moving forward. A lot of the concerns that people have, I think they might be a little bit misguided. And no, you know, respectfully, that's my opinion. In closing, I don't think that anybody can say that we haven't been as transparent, understanding, and cooperative as possible. And I haven't said this before, but I do think it needs to be said. Everybody in this room had the same opportunity to buy that property that I did. And the house sat there for more than 10 years without power. And people had dreams, they had ideas, they looked at it, they backed out. I know other people that looked at the property and they said, man, I just can't make the numbers work. But I took the initiative to buy that property, and I do feel like that I should have the right to do what I want to do with my property within reason. You know, we've met, we've listened, we've been open, we've been honest, we've been transparent, we've worked extremely hard in an attempt to work together with this community. And I respectfully and most humbly request your approval on this partial rezoning of 608 Western Avenue from R10 medium density to multifamily. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that would like to speak in the audience at this time? Come and give your name, and you have 3 minutes once you get started. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Craig Smith, and I'm currently co-owner of 610 Western Avenue with my mother and sister. I'm actually speaking on their behalf tonight. I first want to publicly thank Mr. Hurt for meeting with Mother and I at the property and discussing his new plans for the site. And again, we think it's a nice looking project. It just doesn't belong in that setting with what he wants to do. As we've stated in several previous meetings, we're opposed to the rezoning of multifamily for various reasons, which can be read in the minutes of August 26 of why. Multifamily projects do not meet the current comprehensive plan nor confirm to the area. And really, I can't understand why we're pushing this hearing this month prior to a December 3rd meeting with the professional planners is coming up. There are potential safety concerns, devaluation concerns, traffic, the effects of the ingress and egress, and especially if and when a final project is initiated, the light, the water runoff to nearby neighborhoods and downstreams where there are current issues now. So I'll ask you to go back and review the minutes for any other of our and the community's concerns of August 26th. Let me begin by showing some drawings and saying that I do have comments now about how this entire process has been handled and certainly the optics of it. Some may say that this public hearing is not really where to show these, but I'll completely disagree, and I'll explain. It is relevant to the hearing. So here are the drawings, some of which were there for August the 26th. And somewhere that I can set these so that people can see them. Randy? Thank you. At the August 26th public hearing scheduled on the same night as the special use hearing for a project everyone was aware but had no real details, there was an attempt to stop the public from making comments or speaking on the project during the public opinion hearing of the rezoning, only wanting to allow the public to be able to speak about the project at the special use hearing, an evidentiary hearing. So it was basically an attempt to eliminate the public's opinion, in the public's opinion. If you're unsure of what I'm speaking, of which I'm sure you're not, go back and look at the video and read the minutes of that meeting. I do, however, want to thank the council for intervening and allowing the public to be heard on the subject. So thank you very much. And after so many opposed, Mr. Hurt was advised to pull the application and meet with the community. He did, listen to the community, of which they remained opposed to the rezoning. But here's where the end run around the community using a different strategy comes into play. And it appears being done to have the project eventually approved as initially presented, and why the drawings are again being shown with all of the building as it was shown. I guess it was done thinking that it wouldn't be noticed, the optics. And by the way, the citizens feel this was and is being done with the guidance of the town. So let me continue. Even after so many opposed, the planning board was convinced to allow the rezoning application be filed again prior to normal time frames due to unusual circumstances or financial hardships. No explanation of either, only a rescheduled public hearing. So this time the application is for 5.10 acres of 9.47 acre tract, basically where the back two units are shown on the drawings encircled. Which again brings the question, why is the public hearing pushed into this month when readily admitted there's no rush to development and a planned open meeting with the professional planners involved in the community scheduled 2 weeks from now? What's really changed? Is it because it would not conform to the existing neighborhood and the town doesn't want it part of the conversation? And how can you say it will no doubt be reclassified to multifamily or something else, as you say in the agenda report, when the professionals have not even reviewed it? More optics. So, if the back 5.01 acres are rezoned to multifamily, maybe for the reason you say it could indicate less density initially, and there's a density drawing on the bottom, and I'll make sure I leave these with you. With only one apartment building, which could be constructed with the rezoning, more optics, how long do you think it'll be before we'll be right back here to address another special use to put 2 units right there on that site? If that passes, then how long do you think it'll be before rezoning is applied for asking for the front section to be rezoned to multifamily, and then probably special use again, thus eventually getting to the same project that was initially presented, the original plan? And those involved know it's typically the higher density areas put in the front portion of the properties near the main thoroughfares. Starts at the back, it's going to want to come to the front. They know this, so that's again a part of the end run around the process. So at this point, regardless of the future use of opinion, if all of that's been approved, how are you going to deny it? Because you've already set precedent that it could be done. Now, some of these questions have been presented to the members of the town council and have been met with the response, citizens just need to keep showing up. Well, you know what? I think the citizens have shown up, and it's time for the council to show up for the citizens. Mr. Hurt has been somewhat transparent in the business project he wants and would like to see there. And again, we thank you for that, for doing that. But if the council chooses to approve rezoning, against the current comprehensive plan prior to allowing the professionals do their job they have been engaged to do, and against the neighborhood's wishes. It also needs to be transparent in that decision, and that it might only be about hopeful tax dollars. A financial decision only used to help offset any financial hardships the town might be needing to address, or commitments that it may already been.
And
been
Mr.
made.
Smith, your time is up, so please bring closure.
Thank you. Again, we oppose the rezoning of this property to multifamily. Thanks for hearing.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? State your name and you have 3 minutes. And I did not hear it, so I was,
James Harrell, 707 South Bass Drive. I oppose multifamily change in zoning. I do not think it needs to be there. It's just does not fit. Everybody wants to take and turn around and they go back down to the division next door. And matter of fact, I didn't even know it till this come up and I was talking to someone and they said, oh, the back end of that street, back in the back is duplexes. I said, do what? He said, yeah, that's duplexes back there. Well, you know, the reason for it is the developer was smart. He built houses on the front of it. He sold the houses on the front of it. Then he comes and puts the duplexes because they didn't know they were going to be back there. I was building inspector, another subdivision in Nashville. The man started the subdivision. He's building house after house after house. Well, it had one side street at the front designed for duplexes. He starts putting duplexes in there. The people in the neighborhood stopped me. He said, what are they doing? If I'd known these were going to be here, I would never bought a house out here. And his subdivision stopped for a long time. And then it slowly started again. Multi-duplexes, and that is not what people want. The place I live is duplexes everywhere but 2 houses, mine and another one. Long ago, I had the opportunity to be able to buy a house at Birchwood and to move. So I put my house up for sale. I had 3 people come by and look at it. Everybody liked the house, but they had one problem. You're not going to buy the house because you got all these duplexes. So you tell me it don't deface the value of somebody else's property by having duplexes, I won't believe it and tell you don't know what you're talking about. I don't believe duplexes is what need to be over there or any kind of multifamily. Thank you.
is there anyone else that would like to speak? Come forth, your name, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lisa Butler. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th time I've been up here. I live on Westwood Circle. I'm not sure if any of you have rode around that area when we have a lot of rain. I did send some emails to a couple of people. I'm not sure exactly which ones got it, but it was of the flood we had last week. You could not even go around the circle. This was not a huge rain storm. This was just 5-6 inches of rain. I did encourage if those on the planning board and the council would just ride through our neighborhood and see this hard water surface on these complexes would just run right down in there. I think it's hazardous and will cause major issues in our neighborhood. And I wish you would please, please consider denying this. When you see your neighbor's yard full of water, garages full of water, and this is just going to make it even worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against?
My name is Susan Bell. I live at 618 Western Avenue, and I am against this. There's still 3-story buildings. When we met with Mr. Hurt the last time, we asked him about other, situations where he could build, whether it would be a subdivision or anything else. When the town of Nashville had to buy the Westwood Circle lots out, it was 8 lots, and the town spent $835,000 on those lots. Y'all need to think about, if this happens again with the lady that just spoke in front of me, what other lots y'all are gonna have to buy? And if, the other subdivision down that people spoke about last time, how many other lots y'all are gonna have to buy? If this is built, if this structure is built? Is the town willing to do that? This structure is not in harmony with anything else around. And I'm just not in agreement with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? I can't see. If not, thank you so kindly for the public input on item number B. Council, do you have any comments?
There was one letter that was emailed to be read into the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who wants to read it.
Why don't you read it? That'd be fine.
This was Kenneth Fly, 728 Westview Court, Nashville, North Carolina, 27856. To the mayor, town council, planning board, and fellow citizens. My name is Kenneth Fly. I live at 728 Westview Court, Nashville, North Carolina. I just want to say that I apologize for not being at the town council meeting tonight. I am currently being quarantined due to having COVID-19. While I'm dealing with COVID, I strongly felt the urge to speak on this matter as I am very passionate about the land development around my neighborhood. I want to say that we are not against the development of this land. However, what we are against is the building of multifamily apartments. We do not want these apartments across from our neighborhood, as this will bring in more traffic along Western Avenue, as well as more noise, crime, and air pollution. I want to keep everything in harmony in this community and let Michael Hurt build on this land. I would love to see either townhomes or duplex that are built in this area or neighborhoods like mine on Westview Court. I know that Michael said he was concerned about losing money on this project. I can assure you that Nashville is growing and people would want to rent either townhomes or single-story homes, as the need is great for more townhomes or duplexes in Nashville. I know that the majority of us in this room were at the meeting back in August that went till 11 p.m., and that during that meeting, I believe that the resounding answer was that we were not interested in having 3-story multifamily buildings built there, and that certainly has not changed. After the August council meeting, the planning board denied his request as they thought it was the best interest of the town. I am hoping that the town council will agree with them and deny this once again. While I know this is just a request for rezoning, I hope that the council, planning board, and the developer will take into all the public comments that were had during the last few meetings and hopefully come up with a development that the whole community can be proud of, and we can continue making Nashville great. In conclusion, to the town council and planning board, I want you to think, would you want this development built in your neighborhood? Before you approve this, I ask each of you to think about how you would feel if you looked out your window and saw this every day. I thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the other people in this room. Kenneth Fly.
And we have one other letter that needs to be read, and Councilman,
Hobbs.
we'll read that.
This is a letter from Brent Bass, Realtor and Nashville resident, to the Nashville Planning Board and Town Council regarding rezoning of 9.47 acre parcel located at 608 Western Avenue. This letter is to share my support for the rezoning of 608 Western Avenue to multifamily. I'm aware of only 2 properties of this size located in the town of Nashville that are presently zoned multifamily and are not fully or partially developed. Both of these sites are not for sale and, in my opinion, inferior to the Western Avenue site due to lack of utilities, access, and a desirable location. It has been verified by the town and professional engineers that there is adequate water and sewer capacity, as well as the ability of Western Avenue to support the additional traffic created by this project. I believe this development will be a great asset to the town, generating significant needed revenue from taxes and utilities. Businesses in town will also benefit from the new residents. In my opinion, this development will be the envy of many towns, both big and small. I have been asked several times my opinion of why the Western Avenue corridor into town has not developed like other corridors. Well, I guess one answer could be the comment made by an out-of-state restaurant developer recently visiting the Western Avenue corridor. Where are the cars and the rooftops? Presently, there are not enough residents or traffic nearby to support his project. I have known Mr. Hurt for approximately 3 years and have been fortunate to represent him on the purchase and sale of several properties, including the Western Avenue property. Even though he is a young man, I learned quickly he is wise beyond his years. This should not have been a surprise, being that he is a third-generation builder-developer. He is a licensed general, HVAC, and plumbing contractor. You don't see that often. Mr. Hurt does his homework, is a tireless worker, honest, and has a great vision of the possibilities a property offers. I feel confident that the majority of residents will be pleased with this project. Thank you, Brent Bass.
Thank you. Thank y'all for reading those letters for me. Are there any comments from the council?
I have a question for Mr. Hurt. On your application, you refer to allow for the construction of a multifamily building. Is it one building?
We're rezoning. We're not actually requesting any building build-out right now.
Okay. And on the application, I was just reading it. It says to allow for the construction of a multifamily.
We're just seeking rezoning right now.
Okay.
What we would do is submit for a special use permit, which at that time it would go through a different process and have to have council review it. So right now, we're just seeking that rezoning. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other comments, council?
I had a quick question. I know this was already stated in the prior hearing. On that back portion, if one of these units, if a unit was developed back there, any unit, what would the height be at its maximum from the road?
So the way that the complex was initially laid out, it would step down.
Right.
So the first building, I'm going off of memory, I don't remember it right now. I think it was 8 feet. And then the second building pad, so you had 3 rows of buildings. So the first row would be 8 feet lower than the finished grade of the road. The second row of buildings would have been another 8 feet lower than that. So you're talking 8, 16, 24. So you would be roughly 24 feet lower than the finished grade of where the road is. So if we use this building as a concept, you would just barely see the rooftop. The eave height on that building that we were looking to do is 24 foot 3 inches. That looks like a 2-story house. That's the concept. You have high roof pitches on this particular layout. And so on that particular layout, if it was 3-story, which it could easily be converted to 2, but if it was a 3-story building on that layout, it would mimic that of a 2-story building based off of the height of the eave height. The eave height is from the finished floor to the outside gutter, okay? And then you got your roof pitch that goes up. The previous one that we had shown, the one that's on Mr. Smith's detail there, that was over 34 foot tall to the eave height. So we're talking 10 feet lower just to that eave height. It's a significant difference. On that building, it went, just to the top was 34 feet, and then you had hips and valleys and everything else. That would be closer to 40 feet tall. This is a pretty major overhaul what we've done here. It's intended to look like a residential setting, or at least the height and with the roof pitches, and that's going to cost more than what I had proposed here before. We're talking. But anyhow, the eave height is 24 foot 3. It's on that. If you break out a magnifying glass, you can see that dimension on the side of it.
Any other questions for Mr. Hart? Council, any more comments?
You addressed many of the issues that were brought up. Did you find out anything additional on what one of those concerns was, which was flooding down the way?
So yeah, I was trying to not talk as much in the thing, but so I've been in touch with Matt Gay and Associates, and they feel confident that if there's enough community storm ponds in and around the Stony Creek Basin and along the river, the creek there, the river, that if you put enough community storm ponds up, it could have an impact on your watershed issues. Now, one of them's not going to solve the flooding issues that you've got. But I did drive by both. There was 2 separate storms since now in the previous meeting, and I was actually there at about 1 or 2 o'clock before the flooding started getting bad. And at that point, I didn't feel comfortable driving out there on the flat land because you could start to see it puddling. And you know, I think there's a market study. There's a study that needs to be done by an engineering firm, whether it's Stocks Engineering or whether it's Matt Gay. And I would advocate for that. Because I do feel like that if you put enough community storm ponds up, you could potentially address some of the watershed issues that you've got at the West Circle or Westwood Circle, but also Indian Trail. I feel like that if you put enough community storm ponds, I mean, you might have to have 4 or 5 spaced out, but if they're flooding anyway, the land should either, you might have already owned the land. I haven't followed the whole creek or the river the whole way down, but if you put enough of those community storm ponds, it will have an impact. And it could potentially resolve some of the flooding, you know, up in and around that Stony Creek river. And I would recommend that the town of Nashville strongly look into that. Whether this happens or not, that is something that the town of Youngsville is advocating for right now, because it does allow you to maximize your density too in areas where maybe, you know, it's not beneficial to put a storm pond or bioretention pond, you know, on every property over an acre, right? So if you use your community, if you already got property that's not really being utilized, you could put that community storm pond there, and it will have an impact. One, is it going to have a significant impact? It might have it'll have an impact in the area, but the idea or the thought process behind it is you put more along those low areas, and eventually those watershed, because what a storm pond is going to do, it's going to accumulate the watershed in that community, and it's going to slowly empty it into the creek there, or your river, Stony Creek. And so if you can contain that water in that area instead of it just dumping into the creek or the river, then it's going to have a positive impact. But you need to get some more engineers to look into it. Matt Gay feels like that if you put enough of them along that area, that it can have an impact, and it may resolve your situation at Indian Trail I've been hearing about. So, and just for what it's worth, I've got to put one on this property anyway if we move forward. And I would be willing to donate and allocate the funds that go through doing this to help do one on the property down in this young lady's community. If I've got to put the money for it anyway, if we can work something out where I can allocate funds to help assist with that process, I would be willing to do that.
Thank you so kindly.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
other questions?
I have a question for Mr. Harrell.
After the meeting, you ask him, please. We've already passed the input, the formal input. Any other comments from the planning board or any? If not, do I hear a motion that we adjourn our meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
All.
Meeting is adjourned.
There's still a planning board meeting that's going to follow immediately the adjournment of this meeting. So the planning board is going to consider formulating a recommendation with regard to this rezoning. That's going to happen next. You want to stay around and work off of that.